Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving straight into the foundational building blocks of the Keynesian ISLM model for a closed economy. If you've ever wondered how the big, invisible gears of a national economy actually turn together, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to take this macroeconomic machine apart and put it back together piece by piece, so you can see exactly how the whole thing works. To get us there, here's our 6-step agenda. The macroeconomic master blueprint. Consumers, government, and taxes. Interest rates driving investment. Building the IS curve. Building the LM curve. And finally, the fixed price rule. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the macroeconomic master blueprint, connecting the goods and money markets. So the entire purpose of this model is to show how fiscal and monetary policies impact two absolutely crucial variables in any economy. By mapping out the interactions between the market for physical goods and the market for money itself, we can see exactly what happens when leaders pull the levers of policy. Ultimately, we really want to track where the interest rate, which we'll call little r, and total output, denoted by big Y, will actually end up. Move in right along to Section 2, Consumers, Government, and Taxes, the core components of spending. To build our macroeconomic machine, we first need to understand the groups of people who are actually buying things. Now, private consumption is driven by disposable income, which is really just your total income minus taxes. When your income grows, your consumption grows. But because human nature dictates that we save a little bit of every new dollar, or, at least we should, that growth is dictated by the MPC, or marginal propensity to consume. This is just a fraction that always falls strictly between 0 and 1. You spend a portion of every extra dollar and you save the rest. And here's a super common misconception we really need to avoid. In this specific Keynesian model, your everyday shopping habits are driven by your disposable income? Absolutely not by the current interest rate. Whether the interest rate is sitting at 2% or spiked to 10%, it doesn't change the basic formula for private consumption in this framework at all. Okay, looking at the government side, things are actually even simpler because their spending and taxation are just fixed external decisions. Let's say fixed government spending is set at 500, but the fixed taxes they collect only amount to 400. In this scenario, government savings sit at a negative 100. And that negative 100 is what we call a budget deficit. It simply means the government is injecting more money into the economy than it's pulling out. That brings us to Section 3, interest rates drive investment. This is the business decision engine. So we have our consumers and our government. Now let's bring in real-world business investments. The relationship between interest rates and real investment is basically a giant seesaw. When money is cheap to borrow, meaning rates are low, the net present value of future business projects rises and real investment shoots right up. Conversely, when rates are high, that value drops and investment falls. Section 4, building the IS curve, representing the goods market. Now that we've got consumers, government, and investment, we can combine them into aggregate demand and build our first major subsystem, the IS curve. By the way, IS stands for investment equals savings. You'll inevitably see this curve sloping downward on a graph. But why? Well, to figure that out, we have to trace the exact cause and effect chain reaction in the goods market. Imagine for a second that the interest rate rises. Because borrowing is suddenly way more expensive, real business investment drops. Less investment means total aggregate demand in the economy drops. And finally, that lower demand forces overall economic output to fall. That negative relationship, where high rates literally crush output, is exactly why the IS curve slopes downward. Let's flip to the other side of the coin. Section 5, building the LM curve, or the money market. Let's make sure we contrast our two markets so we don't get them mixed up. While the IS curve maps physical goods and services, the LM curve maps liquidity. LM stands for liquidity preference and money supply. It's a totally different balancing act. It's driven by the actual supply of money printed by the central bank, weighed against the demand for money, like the physical cash people actually want to hold in their wallets for transactions. So if the IS curve slopes downward, why does the LM curve always slope upward from left to right? Unlike the goods market, the logic here relies heavily on what a growing, booming economy does to the public's demand for physical cash. Think about it this way. Step 1, economic output rises. The economy is absolutely humming. Step 2, because of this boom, the demand for money, actual cash for daily transactions, rises. People are buying more stuff. But here's the catch in Step 3. The money supply is completely fixed by the central bank. If everyone suddenly wants more cash but there isn't any extra to go around, the price of holding that money, which is the interest rate, must go up to rebalance the market. Higher output forces a higher interest rate, and there is your upward sloping LM curve. Section 6. The Fixed Price Rule, the Keynesian Short Run. We've built both of our curves, but before we can let this machine actually run, we have one non-negotiable rule. In the short term, overall market prices are completely rigid. They're fixed. They literally cannot adjust downward quickly. This means when demand shifts in our model, it immediately impacts the physical production of goods, the actual output, rather than just causing prices to fluctuate. By putting all these specific assumptions together, we've constructed a beautifully logical engine. Consumption relies on disposable income. Government spending and taxes are fixed dials. Investment opposes interest rates. And prices are totally frozen. In this contained environment, fiscal and monetary levers perfectly dictate the dance between interest rates and national output. We can see exactly what's going to happen to the economy when a policy changes. But I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. We just saw how this entire short-run machine relies completely on the assumption of fixed prices, right? So what happens to this machine when sudden, rampant inflation strikes the real world and prices are suddenly anything but fixed? Figuring out how economists adapt this model for shifting prices is exactly where macroeconomics gets even more fascinating. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how the machine works.